I've been building my own kingdom for everyone to see. It exists to keep me safe from harm, and it's intact to glorify me. Nobody helped me build this up. It was me and me alone. I've appointed myself as the king, and I've given myself the throne. But it turns out I'm no ruler, and I have no control. So I have decided to destroy it all. I'm tearing down the walls, kicking down the doors. Everything inside this kingdom is yours. 'Cause what I've made is worthless, and it cannot stand. Come and breathe some life into my empty, cold, dead hands. Down with the fickle king, away with this fantasy. You are the one I need. Death to the kingdom of me. Death to the kingdom of me. I should probably be frightened. This empire's all I know, but it always does more damage than good. I'm afraid it's gotta go. I know that I can't be trusted, 'cause I'm just a man. And if you hadn't given your life for me, a loser would be all that I am. You know they say just follow your heart. I'm afraid that's a load of trash. Your heart will take you down to deep, dark places where you feel like you'll never come back. So I'm coming out of the dark. This facade is I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, I woke up feeling like it might be a good day to get it done. That's right. Oh, the stadium is just like my second house. Now I'm two-tone talking, they can't shut my mouth. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, 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 yeah. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Two-Tone Talk by God pod. We are here today on Monday afternoon. Tighten up, everybody. The first preseason game is in the books. The Tennessee Titans and the San Francisco 49ers went to battle Saturday night, and whatever starters were in went to battle for a couple of possessions, and then the backups came in. You know how preseason goes, but it was a great experience just to see the Titans take the field again. It has been, of course, 8 months, and so it was just good to get excited for a Titans game, to watch some football, and whoever was in there, I was excited for it, and to see the starters for a couple of possessions was good too, and the Titans won. Listen, I said it the other night, Yes, it's a meaningless preseason game. None of us will remember it in probably 2 weeks. But the Titans won. So it is a victory Monday, even if it's a preseason game. Titans beat the 49ers, I believe it was 17-13. And we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about from that game. Some good things, some things that concern me, and we're going to break it all down today. I appreciate everybody joining. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click that like button. Get me in that algorithm. Click the like button. Make sure to, I'd love to hear from everybody in the comments. Joshua and Will already there. Will says that he loves the intro music. Yes, the new intro song. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Good to see everybody joining in here today, especially if you're listening on Spotify or SoundCloud. Thank you for listening. Let's talk about this game from the other night, the Titans and the 49ers. That is what this episode today is all about. Obviously, the Titans and the Seahawks will have joint practices later on this week. There will be tons of update there. And then this Saturday, the Titans and the Seahawks will play a preseason game in Nashville at 7 Eastern, 6 Central Saturday night. But let's recap the game from Saturday. This is the Titans 49ers recap. And I will say the first thing that I want to get into, because we're going to break it down, offense, defense, special teams. The first thing I want to say is that it was good to see the starters. It was good to see the starters in the game. As you know, in the Vrabel era, really, especially at the quarterback position, we didn't see starters too much in the preseason. I mean, we preseason games were kind of boring. Preseason always gets a little boring, let's be honest, as it goes on. But I mean, it was hard to get excited when, Logan Woodside was going to be taking the snaps. You know what I'm saying, for the Titans at quarterback. And I said this the other night, it was kind of hard to take it seriously when people would say, well, our starting quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, he doesn't need the preseason reps. He doesn't need the preseason reps. But yet Patrick Mahomes was playing, an entire first half in Kansas City. Josh Allen playing an entire quarter or more in Buffalo. And you're telling me those guys need the preseason reps. Our guy doesn't. So and you got to also keep this in mind too. I haven't mentioned this yet. The Titans have had a tendency over the last 4 years to look horrible in week 1 of the regular season. I mean, we've seen it for 4 years straight. The Titans always, and I know week 1 is week 1, but the Titans always had a habit the last 4 years of looking unprepared, ice cold when they came out for week 1. I don't know how much of that had to do with the fact that a lot of players, think about Ryan Tannehill last year. That season opener against the Saints where he threw like 4 interceptions, cost him the game. I don't know. I'm just saying he took no snaps in the preseason. I'm not saying that was a major contributor, but it feels like it might have been. And the Titans certainly do have some guys who will not play in the regular season. Jeff Simmons, L'Jarius Sneed, DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. We have some guys who are not going to play, but, I like to see most of the guys getting in there and getting a little bit of work in the preseason. So I was just glad to see the starters get some work in, because it's more fun to watch that way, and I think they need the reps, especially when you consider where the Titans are at. So we're going to look offense, defense, special teams, and we're starting with the offense. We're starting with what we saw from the offense. Obviously, the starting offense pretty much was out there for 2 possessions, 2 touchdown drives, so that's good. And then the backups slowly started shuffling in. First thing I want to talk about is the offensive line. We kind of got the starting offensive line that we expected to get, which was Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Radens, Petit-Frere. Some things I want to say about this. That right side of the line with Radens and Petit-Frere, probably still open auditions going on for that, but the safe bet right now would be that Radens and NPF will be on the right side. I mean, that would, unless
they are just of course, if they get hurt, but unless they're just a disaster for the remainder of camp and the preseason, I would be shocked if it's not Radens and NPF over there on the right side. And before I get to how they played the other night, I just want to say, for all of the negativity, and I've been the ringleader, the Titans had terrible drafts in 20, 21, maybe 22. Awful. But if this is the starting offensive line, and if they're good, Radens was a 2021 pick, NPF was a 2022 pick, Skoronski a 2023 pick, Latham a 2024 pick. So for all of the woes surrounding the Titans drafts there for a little bit, you could have an offensive line made up of 4 out of 5 guys who were drafted over the last 3 years. That would be a good thing. Okay, that's a good thing to salvage that. And that's what I've been saying for years with a guy like Dillon Radens. The Titans owe it to themselves to try to make something of this guy. I don't know what's been going on. Sorry for anybody watching on YouTube. We're having a little bit of connection issues right there. If you're listening on Spotify, you might have heard some noises right there. Little bit of connection issues, but we're back going now, I believe. Hope that doesn't happen again. We've been having some internet difficulties in the area. But back to Dillon Radens. He's just kind of been a guy for the last few years. Not really a guy that it seemed like they believed in. And I've been saying this was a second-round pick in 2021. You owe it to yourselves to see if there's something there. And now they're seeing if there's something there. I thought he did okay the other night at that right guard position. In PF, I said on Twitter, he deserves the award, at least for the other night, he deserves the award for guy who looks like a different person. Because he looked like a different human being. He started every game, not last season, but the year before at right tackle. And while he was serviceable, it was not exactly like, oh, we have our right tackle of the future, you know. And so I was iffy on him coming back this year and taking that right tackle spot. But the other night, he's laying dudes out. He's really good in pass protection. He looked like a different guy, and maybe that's just the Bill Callahan effect on both of those guys. You know, I've been saying there's hope for some of these offensive linemen that maybe we had given up hope for. Now with Bill Callahan, there's hope that they can be something. And so maybe we saw some of that on the right side of the offensive line the other night, because NPF looked like a new guy. Dillon Radens, I thought, held his own quite well. And if that's the starting offensive line, and if they're good, especially, Titans fans should be excited, because that's, except for Lloyd Cushenberry at center, that is an offensive line that's been built now over 3 years. So that would be good news. That would be very good news. The left side of the line, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the picture of J.C. Latham there. That's their first-round pick from this past year from Alabama. I thought, obviously, you see the videos on Twitter kind of breaking down his performance. Thought he did well. I mean, there's got to be first-game jitters. It's your first NFL game, even if it is preseason. This is your first NFL game, your first-round pick. There's a lot of expectation. I would imagine, yes, there's some first-game jitters, but I thought in pass protection he did well. Maybe a couple of missed assignments along the way where he and Skoronski were double-teaming and he was supposed to break off and he didn't. But overall, I was pleased with what we saw from J.C. Latham. Peter Skoronski is bulked up. He looked like, you know, he was one of the lone bright spots from the offensive line last year. You need him to be good. He was a first-rounder last year. Latham's a first-rounder this year. That left side of the offensive line should be good for a long time. Lloyd Cushenberry, I thought... Lloyd Cushenberry did get beat on one play. It was, I believe it may have been a jet sweep or something where Lloyd just got beat right across his face. But overall, I thought the offensive line was very encouraging, and you need it to be. I mean, the Titans' offensive line has just been horrible for the last couple of years. So Bill Callahan's here to hopefully save the day and make something of these guys. And we've been saying it all off season. That's a perfect fit for an offensive line made up of mostly young guys. You need somebody like Bill Callahan calling the shots. And I thought that there was a lot to be encouraged about with the offensive line the other night. Obviously, there's still 2 preseason games to go. We'll see how they hold up. I'm sure they'll get more reps in the next 2 preseason games. But for week 1, I thought I'm very encouraged, especially because it's all guys, mostly 4 out of 5, that have been drafted over the last few years. And some of those backup guys, didn't do badly either. But I think you feel good about those 5 after the other night. Only 2 possessions, but I thought especially in pass protection, to see that clean pocket that Will Levis had, my goodness. And obviously in PF, as I said, he wins the award for player who looked totally different than what we've seen. He looked more aggressive to me. He looked almost like in better shape. I know last year he dealt with a suspension injury. We didn't see a whole lot of him. But, I mean, this is the Bill Callahan effect. These are guys that we were kind of losing faith in that now have newfound hope because of this guy coming in and coaching the offensive line. Let's keep talking about the offense here. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. You have to talk about the quarterbacks. Will Levis played 2 possessions, and I thought he did well. He sure did better than Anthony Richardson. I don't know if anybody watched Anthony Richardson yesterday in Indianapolis, but he was dookie in his limited playing time. I'm not going to say what that means for him in the regular season. I'm just saying Anthony Richardson didn't look too hot yesterday in Indianapolis. Will Levis, I thought, did what he needed to do, except for at one moment where I wanted to tell him to just go take a seat on the bench, and that was when he tried to run over a defender to try to get into the end zone. We know Will, he had a tendency to do that last year. We remember the play against, I believe, Indianapolis last year where he went flying through the air to try to get a first down. Against Miami when he lowered that shoulder to try to run a guy over. Listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate the fire, all right? I appreciate the effort. This is preseason football, and you're about to separate a shoulder trying to run over a guy in a preseason football game. I know it's football. I know it's aggressive. I know it's physical. You just can't do that. You can't. Somebody has got to get this guy, because everybody can say, oh, we love it. That's fun. That's the way Will plays. It's fun until he gets hurt. It's fun. And I know Will Levis is big. He's a big dude. It's fun until he gets hurt. Ask the Colts. Anthony Richardson barely got to play last year. Well, he didn't even take that hard of a hit and got hurt. But Will Levis, I'm telling you, you don't need him getting hurt, especially in a meaningless preseason football game. All right? So I do not want to see that anymore. There's a lot of times where I don't even want to see that in the regular season, but I sure don't want to see it in a preseason football game. You got to be healthy. You cannot be lowering your shoulder to try to run somebody over in preseason. Somebody's got to get him and tell him that. Okay. And if you've already told him before, you got to tell him again, because he can't keep doing it. Other than that moment, I thought, and also to follow that play up with a quarterback sneak for a touchdown. Whoa. I mean, it's an effective play because they were on like the half-yard line and Will Levis is a big dude. But, I mean, after he lowered the shoulder, the next play we're going to put the ball in his hands and let him run it in. Sheesh. Okay. But as far as throwing the ball, awful lot of, finding Spears and Pollard out of the backfield. Nothing wrong with that. I think we're going to see a lot of that in the regular season. I'm about to talk about Spears and Pollard. Obviously had the play to Ridley. So nothing. He looked confident, looked sure of himself, stayed upright except for that one moment where he tried to run somebody over. Don't do it again. So I liked what I saw from Will. He looked comfortable in the offense, and probably some first game jitters for him too, because this is his first season coming in as the starter, and they've put all of this help around him. There's some pressure that comes along with that, but I thought he looked confident. He did what he needed to do. Didn't do anything crazy like Jaden Daniels did with Washington when he threw that deep ball, but he did what he needed to do. What was he, 4 or 5 for 35 yards? Nothing wrong with that. That's a good first game of the preseason performance from Will Levis. Let's talk about the other guys. Mason Rudolph eventually got in there. Some people were complaining about Mason Rudolph. I thought Mason Rudolph did exactly what I thought he would. He is a by-the-books backup quarterback. And last year, I know he was able to come in Pittsburgh when Kenny Pickett got hurt and actually, you know, they went to the playoffs. He helped get the Steelers to the playoffs. I'm not saying it was all him, but I think Mason Rudolph is a perfectly fine backup quarterback. If Will Levis, God forbid, gets hurt and has got to miss some time, you can win some games with Mason Rudolph. He's not Joe Montana or anything, but he's a back. He is a solid backup quarterback. I said the other night, I think he's the best backup quarterback that the Titans have had since Ryan Tannehill backed up Marcus Mariota 5 years ago. I mean, who's been? I mean, Logan Woodside, like Malik 2 years ago. Like, come on, I think he's the best backup that we've had, and he did about what I expected. I mean, threw for about. He probably played the most. Maybe Malik got a little more playing time in the second half, but I thought he was fine. I thought Mason Rudolph was exactly what I expected him to be. And then eventually Malik Willis got in. And people have been talking about Malik and how good of a training camp he had. And people were excited about the possibility of what Malik, how he had improved. I thought Malik certainly wasn't bad when he got in there. He obviously had the long run. We know he can do that. He's very fast. He's very athletic. And I thought Malik did. I actually thought Malik had the best throw of the night, and I hate that it got called back for an illegal formation. But he actually had the best throw of the night of any quarterback that played. That, over the top of the defender to I don't even remember the guy's name, the receiver that was in at that time on the sideline. That was the best throw of the night. It got called back. That was a really good throw. For Malik, and I said this last week, it's going to come down to, can he do something so great? Can he be so great in this preseason that they have to carry 3 quarterbacks to the 53-man roster? And I don't see it happening, guys. I like Malik. He's a good kid. Absolutely. But I just don't see them carrying 3 quarterbacks. I think Malik will end up on the practice squad. I think Malik will be around. If somebody, God forbid, gets hurt, yes, you can call him up. But for right now, yes, he didn't do anything horrible the other night. But I don't know. I would like to see him with at least the second string to see how he does. He didn't feel quite as chaotic the other night as he has in the past when getting in there. And like I said, he had the best throw of the night of anybody on that ball that got called back for the illegal formation or illegal shift. I don't remember which one it was, but I don't think Malik's making the 53. I don't think they're going to carry 3 quarterbacks to the roster unless Malik was so great that they couldn't deny it. And while he hasn't been bad, I don't think he's been so over the top fantastic that they just have to go with him, right? So that's my thoughts on the quarterbacks the other night. Let's carry on as we continue with the offense. Somebody mentioned special teams. We're going to get to special teams here shortly. Let's talk about the running backs. Tajay Spears, I was trying to read the chat along with changing out the picture here if you're watching on YouTube. Talk about the running backs, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. I want to talk about Tony Pollard at first. That was a signing that I was a little confused by because, they signed Tony Pollard like immediately. Like, free agency opened, Titans signed Tony Pollard. It was like the first thing that happened. And that was surprising to me at the time. And I just, went with it. When I saw the details of the contract, it was like, all right, fine. Like, let's just go with it. What I saw from Tony Pollard the other night, I thought he looked good. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought Tony Pollard was solid. In the run game and the pass game the other night, he was effective in the 2 possessions that he was in. He obviously had the 24-yard run down the sideline, had a big 3rd down conversion where he made some nice moves. I think I'm officially excited about Tony Pollard. Like, not that I haven't been excited, but like after the other night, I'm definitely more excited about Tony Pollard because 2 years ago in Dallas, Tony Pollard was viewed as a good running back. People were like, hey, that dude's good. Last year he got hurt. Things didn't go the way they thought it would. Now he's in Tennessee, and I thought Saturday night he looked a little more like that Tony Pollard from 2 years ago. So I'm very excited about that. And then you factor in Spears. Didn't do anything crazy the other night. He did have the touchdown where he made a little nice move, nice little juke to get in there. But we know what Tyjae Spears is capable of. We saw it last year when he was kind of playing second fiddle to Derrick Henry. Tyjae Spears, effective in the run game and the pass game. He's got nice moves. If we get the Tony Pollard that we saw the other night and you pair that with Tyjae Spears, consider me incredibly excited about the running back situation. I know it's all we've heard this offseason. How do you replace Derrick Henry? Oh, what a huge hole left behind by Derrick Henry leaving this team. Well, welcome to 2024 because now you have two guys who, yes, can be effective in the run game, but can be effective in the pass game too. We saw it the other night with Pollard especially. So I'm very excited about that. I am more excited about the running back situation now than I was before the game because of Pollard's performance. I thought he did that well. As far as that third, they're going to have to carry a third running back to the main roster. Kind of a battle going on between Julius Chestnut and Hassan Haskins. I know Brian Callahan kind of agging on that battle because he said Chestnut played better at running back, but Haskins was better on special teams. So we're kind of dead even. That's probably going to be a battle throughout the preseason that we'll see unfold. I probably give the edge to Julius Chestnut just a little bit. But that probably remains to be seen as which one of those guys will make it. But I was thrilled with Pollard and Spears. And I'm very excited about that duo at running back. Let's talk about wide receivers. And Calvin Ridley gets his own slide here if you're watching live on YouTube. Calvin Ridley gets his own moment here. He had the catch the other night, 22-yard gain on 3rd and 10, I believe. Caught the ball a few yards shy of the sticks and then just outran everybody. Had Tyjae Spears leading the way as a lead blocker. I love that. Picked up the first down. To me, that was like when you go to the food court at the mall and they have the people giving samples of chicken and you take the sample and it's so good that you have to come back for more. That was what that was. That was a sample. That was a sample. That was a preview. I'm telling you, I am excited about this guy. That play, it was just one play because he literally got out after that play. They saw that play and they were like, that's enough, Calvin, for tonight. We've seen what we need to see. You can see the acceleration, the speed, the excitement, the playmaking ability. Much different player than AJ was. AJ, is bigger, but Ridley with the speed and the acceleration, the route running, which Jaguars fans have said he's not good at. Please make it make sense. I'm very excited, and I love that. I love to see that speed and acceleration. Obviously, like I said, on 3rd and 10. Now, 3rd and 10's hard for any team, but especially the Titans. 3rd and 2 or more for the last couple of years has just been miserable. Like, go ahead and get the punt team ready. But to see the protection, to see Levis standing in strong making the throw, and then Ridley outracing the guys, a lot of exciting things on that play. Excited about Calvin Ridley. Let me catch up with some questions here in the chat. I know you guys have been sending stuff in. Logan Brown said, do you think Ridley is the first elite speed receiver we've had? I know AJ was quick, but he was more of a physical route runner and could out-muscle guys. Literally, the speed of Ridley is what excites me the most. Not just in route running, but once he gets the ball in the open field. We saw it the other night. I'm very excited about that, and he might be the first elite speed receiver we've had. As far as the running back situation, is who's going to be running back 1 or running back 2, going back to that discussion, I mean, we saw the other night they were literally alternating them every play. I think that's what it's going to be like. I think it's going to be Spears, Pollard, Spears, Pollard. Maybe if there's a particular game where one guy just has the hot hand that day, you just go more with him. But I thought it was clear that Spears would probably get, a little more favorability. But if Pollard keeps playing like he did the other night, I don't know. Any news on D-Hop? Not sure. I think he's just the last I saw is that he's on pace to be back for week 1 against Chicago, but I doubt we see him at all in the preseason. I would be willing to bet money on that. Calvin Ridley was great the other night. In terms of other wide receivers, obviously we got the picture of Treylon Burks there. Treylon has been a major topic of discussion this offseason and what all of these new additions mean for him. He had 1 catch for 12 yards, kind of showed what we hope to see from him. Treylon, body-wise, is a little more like that A.J. Brown type. He's a bigger guy with the speed. He had the catch the other night, was good. A 12-yard completion, bouncing off defenders. Treylon is a no-brainer to make the roster, in my opinion. It's just what's he going to do once he makes the roster. I think you'll see more opportunities for Treylon in the preseason because surely I would be surprised if Ridley even plays this Saturday against Seattle. So I think you'll see more opportunity for Treylon, maybe even in week 3 as well. Tyler Boyd, obviously, probably, we'll have that opportunity as well. But Treylon is a no-brainer to make the roster. The wide receiver thing's interesting. We're going to talk about the special team stuff and how that factors in. But if you're looking at, because obviously Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd, those 3 are no-brainers. I think Burks is a no-brainer. I think Westbrook-Akine is a no-brainer just because of his familiarity with everything. To me, he looks not smaller, but he looks like he's a little more slim. Westbrook-Akine looks a little faster to me. Maybe I'm just dreaming that. But I think Westbrook-Akine is a no-brainer just because of what he brings to special teams, his familiarity with all of the different positions. I think that those 5 guys are a no-brainer. It's interesting because that special teams, Kearis Jackson or Jaquan Jackson, surely one of those guys is the 6th guy. It's kind of like what I was saying with Malik at quarterback. Can any of these other wide receivers do something so great in the preseason that it's undeniable we've got to put them on the roster? The other night, I mean, Kyle Phillips, I think, had a couple catches. Mason Kinsey had a couple of catches. Nobody else really that you're just like, oh, we gotta have this guy, So I think that wide receiver wise, it seems like a 6 wide receivers taken to the roster type thing with Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd, Burks, NWI, and whichever returner they decide to keep, which we're going to talk about those guys here in a second at the end. But tight end wise, the guy that got in there with Rudolph, 88, I believe, was his number. I don't even remember his name. He had 2 names. It was like, my mind's going blank. Robinson was one of them. I thought he was making some nice plays. I mean, I know Odukoya is probably the, who they have pegged for that 3rd tight end spot, but it's a little Martin Robinson. Thank you. My mind went totally blank. Evan got me in the chat. Martin Robinson. He was making lots of plays with the 2nd and 3rd string. And so maybe he can make it a little interesting, but I think the tight end stuff is set in stone. So I believe that is all the discussion for the offense. Now we move on to the defense, where a little more things that concern me. Obviously, Teair Tart was a major topic of discussion. Didn't do much the other night. Teair Tart. Tavondre Sweat. Not Teair Tart. See how my mind's. I haven't eaten today. I haven't eaten lunch yet. Maybe that's why my mind's blank. I said Tierre Tart. Tavondre Sweat. I think he's the same number as Tierre Tart, so I'm having to train my brain. Tavondre Sweat. Tierre, Tavondre, they both start with a T. Anyway, Tavondre Sweat was a major topic of discussion going into the game the other night. Yeah, Freudian slip, as Logan said. Didn't really do much. I mean, let's be honest. Nothing that really looked as quite as dominant as the clips we've seen from practice of him. But he was getting double teamed a lot. Again, the first game jitters, clearly. No Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, having Jeffrey Simmons next to him would help. Having Harold Landry out there would help. But I can see that it was not exactly the dominance that we had seen in the clips that were in in practice. We'll see, but he's going to have to do something. He's going to have to, it's funny that I accidentally said Tierre Tart a second ago because obviously we see the similarities. And Tierre Tart did some good things. He was productive for the Titans when he was there. But we know there were, some behind the scenes stuff with Tierre that caused the issues. And he went on to have those same issues with Houston. I hope we don't recreate that with Tavondre Sweat. Tavondre Sweat, I'm not like out on him after the other night. I mean, he was in there for 2 possessions. He had one play where it was the screen pass where he kind of broke through, kind of wrecked some guys. That was the most similar to the clips we had seen from practice, but overall he was double teamed. Looked like he might have taken the wrong gaps at times, and he's going to have to continue to get in shape. I mean, he's a really big guy. And he's going to have to play a lot. So one guy on the defensive line that was suspiciously quiet, I didn't hear anything about Sebastian Joseph Day. Mentioned him last week. We just haven't heard much about or from him in training camp or anything. And I sure didn't hear his name called the other night. I also didn't hear Cedric Gray's name called, but somebody said he was out. So I don't know what the deal is with him. That's a linebacker talk, which we'll get to in a second. But as far as the defensive line, one guy that stood out to me was Keandre Coburn. Keandre Coburn, who got a lot of playing time with the Titans toward the end of last year when we were just putting guys on IR because we were out of the playoffs. Keandre Coburn came in and did some nice things. And I thought he played well the other night, and it kind of got me thinking, could this guy be that depth piece on the defensive line whenever Big Jeff needs to get water, whenever Tavondre Sweat needs to get water? Could this be a guy who, if he continues throughout the preseason for sure, continues to rise up in the ranks? Because, I mean, he was wrecking guys the other night. And I know backups at second stringers is preseason. This is what it is. And I don't know how Keandre Coburn's been doing in practice, but the other night he did a lot of good stuff in the preseason game. So that's a guy I'm looking at as we continue on here throughout the preseason. Could he be a big part of this depth on the defensive line? And as Evan said, if Chance Campbell didn't have the game he had, Keandre Coburn would have been the MVP of this game. He was all over the place defensively, had a nice sack there on a 4th down, I believe. A lot of good effort from him. So that's a guy I'm looking at as, hey, not is he going to be a starter, but could he be a good depth piece, a rotational guy on this defensive line? Not just a good run stopper, but I mean, he was getting after the quarterback on pass plays as well. So was very excited about him. Now we go to pass rush, which is my biggest concern. Hello? Am I still on? Am I still on here? Apparently so. Let me know if you guys still... My computer just went black. Okay, as long as I'm still on, I'm going to keep talking. Rashad Weaver, I'm putting the picture of him on there as the kind of encapsulating the edge rushers. I'm concerned about the pass rush. The first team that was in there, you know, they were not getting home. And I know there's no Jeff Simmons, there's no Harold Landry, but it looked mighty 2020 like. You remember 2020 when the Titans just could not get home? Could not get to the passer? Looking kind of like that. I'm not going to freak out about it right now, but I mean, this was a concern before the game. So now that we've seen it in the game, well, now it's a major concern. All right. Not a major concern, but it sure didn't put our worries to rest. I don't know. Somebody's going to have to step up, whether it's Weaver, Murphy, somebody. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but they just weren't getting anywhere near him. Now, it got better as the game went on, and obviously Denard Wilson, he's going to be blitzing. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to be bringing the smoke. But sometimes you got to be able to just get home with the front four. Right? I mean, you got to be able to press through with the front four, and that front four wasn't even getting anywhere close. Was it Brandon Allen starting the game for San Francisco? He was like he could have taken a nap back there. Okay? So I'm worried about the pass rush. Still wonder if they might try to make a signing, especially with Arden Key being out for the first 6 weeks. But Arden Key was in the other night, and he was not getting anywhere close either. So we'll see about that pass rush. But it sure ain't looking good right now. Looks like a weak point on the team. Speaking of weak points on the team, let's carry on to linebackers. Inside linebackers, that's a position of need as well as what we've seen. But first of all, I want to say Otis Reese, I thought did some good stuff the other night in the time that he was in. Had some nice plays. Some people have mentioned him as a guy who's going to have to step up. I thought he did the other night. I thought Otis Reese played really well. And I think you're going to see him. You're going to hear that name in the regular season because he's going to get playing time. Kenneth Murray was in there for a little bit. I didn't get too good of a look at what he was doing. I know he brought the blitz on the first play of the game and nearly got home. Good Lord, he was in Brandon Allen's face as soon as the ball was snapped. But, he's had a good camp, so hopefully he can figure it out. His in coverage is where he suffers the most. Maybe in Tennessee he can find a way to turn that around. Let's talk about Chance Campbell. Chance Campbell. Player of the game. Player of the game. And this is a classic example of a guy using the preseason as an opportunity to insert himself into the active rotation come regular season time. Because this guy was all over the place. I think 10 tackles. He had a sack, had an interception on the last play of the game, was everywhere. And this is a guy, like, again, you want to know the kinds of guys that benefit from preseason the most. It's a guy like Chance Campbell. A lot of fans before Saturday night had no idea who Chance Campbell even was. And now everybody's talking about him because of how well he played the other night, how hard he went. Chance Campbell made some noise the other night. And with that being such a position of need for the Titans, it's like, hey, the opportunity is going to be there for him and Otis Reese and some of these guys. They're making their case right now. And Chance Campbell, player of the game, MVP of the game for the Titans the other night, no doubt. Happy for him. That's what preseason's all about, is guys like Chance Campbell. And I thought he was phenomenal. The other night. We'll see if he can carry on when he's in there with starters. But he was great. Secondary. Let's talk about secondary. Obviously, no Snead, no Awuzie. Amani Hooker played a little bit. No Quandre Diggs, no Jamal Adams. Roger McCreary was in there. He had a nice pass breakup. Brownlee. Brownlee's, we know it's kind of like the wide receiver position. We know who the starters are going to be. We know Snead, Awuzie, and McCreary are going to be the starting corners. Probably Diggs and Hooker at safety. Now it's a matter of who's going to be the rotational guys. If one of those guys gets hurt, if one of those guys needs water, if one of those guys, tweaks something and needs to come out of the game for a little bit. I mean, Brownlee had the nice pass breakup. I would take him over Trey Avery. God bless Trey Avery. I'm just kind of done with that experiment. Brownlee, Caleb Farley is sure ain't looking good for him. So I mean, if it comes down to it, they're probably taking Trey Avery on the roster or over Caleb Farley just because Farley, you know, can't stay healthy. And I hate it because I wish Caleb Farley, with all he's been through, I wish it would work out, but it hasn't so far. But Brownlee looks like a guy that can come in and make some noise. Obviously, like you guys said, Jamal Adams coming in. That's going to help with the pass rush, hopefully, and with the secondary. So we'll see with Adams. But Brownlee stood out in the secondary the other night. I thought he did great. McCreary, like I said, with a little bit of time he was in there, he had a nice pass breakup. So some good things happening on the defense. I'm mostly concerned about edge rush. I'm mostly concerned about pass rush. It was non-existent. It was just non-existent at times the other night. Got to figure it out. Again, no Simmons, no Landry. But, I mean, with Arden Key being out for the first 6 games, somebody still is going to have to step up on that other side. Like, who's going to be the guy? Because somebody's got to do it. And I'm sure Denard Wilson's going to be blitzing a lot. So, I mean, that's going to help. Lastly, let's talk about special teams. An area that has not been good for the Titans for the last couple of years. I will say Nick Folk did miss a field goal going into the half. Don't like to see that. But the new kick return style and everything, I mean, it is what it is. Kearis Jackson just had a phenomenal kick return. 2 spin moves in a row. I mentioned Kearis on the podcast last week. I literally said, this guy made the roster last year. He was on the roster. Nobody talking about him. Well, they're talking about him now. That kick return was really nice. And then Jaquan Jackson had a really nice punt return as well. It's going to be interesting. I mentioned the battle between Chestnut and Haskins to see who's going to be that third running back. Who's going to be the returner and therefore the 6th wide receiver on the roster? Because to me, right now, it is between Kearis Jackson and Jaquan Jackson. And I might give the edge to Kearis a little bit because of how good that kick return was, but we got a long way to go. Jaquan Jackson does have the speed. So we'll see. I mean, this is like a battle going on, but I thought the returns were tremendous the other night. And also something that hasn't been talked about as much, good kick coverage for the Titans the other night. Good punt coverage for the Titans. Not something you hear a lot about, but I mean, they were, people were talking about how the 49ers were having trouble with the new kickoff, and that's why, Kearis Jackson had that big return, because the Titans never get credit for anything. But the Titans covered the kicks really well. The Titans were on top of it and on punts and everything. So special teams looks like it's headed in the right direction. We've all known that it probably would because Craig Aukerman, needed to go. And so there you go. That's the good stuff. The main concern that stands out to me is the edge rush. And we'll see. I mean, I don't know how many starters you'll get this Saturday because we're going to be doing the joint practices with Seattle through the week. You may see the starters do more in that regard, and then in the actual game, it's more so backups. But there is still a lot of action going on in the preseason. Who's going to get that returner job? Who's going to get running back 3? Who's going to make the cut in terms of corners and inside linebackers? Those battles rage on. Overall, I'm very excited to see Brian Callahan out there too. You just saw the camera cut to him a few times, but I mean, he was calling the plays. He's not going to show his hand too much in the preseason. Neither is Denard Wilson at defensive coordinator, but I will say Denard Wilson later in that game, he was bringing the house and some cool blitz combinations were coming. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about everything that I've been excited about this offseason with a new style of offense, throwing the ball more progressive style. I'm more excited about it now after seeing how Pollard and Ridley and everybody performed the other night. I thought that was nice. And Julius Chestnut, somebody mentioned his screenplay. I do want to mention that was a good, nice play too by him. Julius Chestnut, you hear that name a lot in the preseason. Will he make it, and get that chance to be the guy that if Spears or Pollard gets hurt, he gets some time? We'll see. But that's an ongoing battle between him and Hassan Haskins. But this week, it is Seattle. We'll see the joint practices later this week. I plan to be back on Friday talking to you here on Two Tone Talk about everything going on leading up to the Seahawks official game this Saturday night. God bless you, everybody. Thank you for joining me on Two Tone Talk. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out all of the different content going up on the channel. And thank you for listening on